So as a long-term fan of the Fallout series, I was ecstatic, to say the least, when the Fallout TV show was announced back in July of 2020. I mean, me and my friends were chomping at the bit to see the Fallout world brought to life. Fast forward 3+ years, and here we are. I binge watched the show in about a day and was left wanting more, which brings me to the point of this video. I wanted to platinum the PS5 release of Fallout 4. I have the platinum trophies for the majority of the Fallout games, including the PS4 version of Fallout 4, but I haven't played a Fallout game in about 2 years. To say that I'm a bit rusty would be an understatement. So, with my own real-life dog meat in tow, I set out into the Commonwealth to conquer this trophy list. But first, the obligatory YouTube Fallout 4 intro.
War never changes.
Now, with that out of the way, the first thing on the agenda was to create a character, and I did the best that I could to make him look just like me, so obviously I made this man a complete unit.
It looked like somebody stole 2 fine hams and shoved them down the back of your dress.
Immediately after that, this guy knocks on the door.
Do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ?
I promptly informed him that this is a very serious YouTube channel, and I would not be putting up with any hijinks, any shenanigans, or any tomfoolery of any sort during this playthrough. We're going to be taking this playthrough and this platinum trophy very seriously. So after he left, Smelly McFarterson turns towards the TV to find out that nukes are falling all over the United States, and it's time to get to the vault. So we head straight to Vault 111, just in time to see a nuke go off in the distance right before we're lowered down into Vault 111. Once inside, we were ushered quickly towards a decontamination chamber, or at least what was supposed to be a decontamination chamber. Turns out we were actually being cryogenically frozen, which doesn't really bother me anyways.
Cold never bothered me anyway.
God only knows how much later I woke up and saw my wife being murdered and my son being kidnapped, shortly before being frozen again.
Let it go.
After waking up for the final time, I decided to explore the vault a little bit, and along the way I punched some irradiated cockroaches, read some other people's private DMs, and even found this holotape which popped me a trophy called Future Retro, which is given to you for playing a holotape game. And with that first trophy out of the way, I was more excited than Diddy signing a new rapper to his label. And similar to Diddy, nothing could stop me now from getting what I want. That sweet, sweet platinum trophy.
Can't stop. Won't stop.
Now, upon further exploration of the vault, I found this Pip-Boy, and finally it was time to leave the vault. And leave we did, which actually popped us our second trophy titled War Never Changes. I then made my way back to my house to assess the damage, where I ran into Codsworth, my robot butler. And after a bit of dialogue, he tells me that if I want to fund my son Sean, I should make my way to Concord. So off I went, and I did stop at the Red Rocket along the way and picked up dog meat for obvious reasons.
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy, huh? Who's a good boy?
Me.
Oh, who's...
Now, once in Concord, I had to fight enemies to make it to meet the Minutemen, where they tasked me with getting a suit of power armor and then taking out the remaining raiders in town, as well as taking out a Deathclaw, which I did with the flawless precision that you would expect from a Fallout veteran such as myself. Or, well, that's how it went the second time. After killing that Deathclaw on the very first try, I decided to return to Preston, and I was told to continue on to Diamond City or meet with the Minutemen in Sanctuary, which I chose the latter. And after talking with Preston when I got there, it popped the third trophy titled When Freedom Calls.
Minutemen could use more people like you. By the way, if you want to help out around...
At this point, I decided to head off towards Diamond City to continue my search for Sean. And along the way, I was killing stuff and happened to hit level 5, which then popped me my next trophy titled Born Survivor. After a little time exploring, I finally arrived at Diamond City, where I met a girl at the gate named Piper who introduced me to her sister. And after some questioning, she said that I should look for Detective Nick Valentine. He might be able to help me find Sean. Naturally, being this close to a breakthrough in the case of my missing son, I decided this was the perfect time to take a break and run the bases at Diamond City to get the trophy for home run.
Bar in the old theater district. It's for Raiders only. Combat zone. Stay clear about it.
And after running the bases, I proceeded to Nick's office only to find out that he was captured while working a case. His secretary offered me money to help rescue him, so off I went. After arriving at Park Street Station, which is where they took Nick, I took out some bad guys, including this one. Then I spoke with Nick about my son Sean, where he smartly advised that we escape before continuing this conversation. So I vented my frustration by murdering some mobsters, then met Nick outside, where I received the Unlikely Valentine Trophy for completing the quest of the same name, as well as the Commonwealth Citizen Trophy for reaching level 10, but that was not before Nick told me to meet him back in Diamond City. Now, after meeting with Nick in Diamond City, I sat down with him for some questions regarding the kidnapping. Nick was able to identify a man named Kellogg as the kidnapper, so obviously when solving a crime, it's more than acceptable to commit more crimes. So we broke into Kellogg's house and stole all of his stuff before deciding to use dog meat to sniff out Kellogg across the entire Commonwealth, which he was able to do with pinpoint accuracy. Now, once we tracked down Kellogg at Fort Hagen, we decided to kill him. We also took a piece of his brain, as well as took a peek at his terminal, where we found out that Sean was delivered by Kellogg to the Institute. And immediately, Nick suggests returning to Diamond City to speak with Piper to see if she knows a way into the Institute. While we were talking to Piper, Nick suggests heading to the Memory Den in Good Neighbor. At the end of this conversation, I had to choose to either take Nick or Piper with me. I went ahead and chose Nick because he's awesome. And this concludes the quest and popped our 8th trophy reunion.
Just a few more steps.
Now, once in Good Neighbor, we met this cracked out version of a pirate I like to call Crack Sparrow.
I'm gonna tell you something about me, Joe Rogan, that you might not know. I smoke rock.
Then we took an acid trip down memory lane inside Kellogg's brain. And while in there, we discovered that everyone teleports to get inside the Institute. Once we exit the memories, the doctor informs me that I will need to find Virgil in the Glowing Sea. This wraps up the Dangerous Minds quest, which pops us another trophy. I figured this was a good time to put the main story on pause and start working on the Minutemen quest line. And pretty quickly, I'd gotten a trophy for rebuilding Sanctuary. Then I went and talked to Preston, which popped the first step trophy for joining the Minutemen.
Okay, I'll do it. Good. Good. Welcome aboard.
On the advice of Preston, I decided to start helping settlements, which popped the Community Organizer trophy.
By the way, we've talked about it. We decided to support the Minutemen. I think it's worth giving.
Then we were on to the Taking Independence quest, which consisted of killing a Mirelurk Queen and taking back the Minutemen HQ. And once completed, we popped the Taking Independence trophy. Now, the next Minutemen quest takes a couple of days to show up, so what I did was go out and kill some guys, and in the meantime, I got the Touchdown trophy for catching a nuke with my face. Finally, though, Ronnie decided to show up at the Minutemen HQ, which allowed me to start the Old Guns quest for the Minutemen. During this quest, I gained access to the armory, killed a sentry bot, then came back outside and built artillery. Then it was time to test the artillery. And right before turning in this quest, Nick gives me a quest to go and kill a guy named Eddie Winter. And then we eventually turn in the quest to pop the Old Guns trophy. Next, we set off on that quest to find Eddie Winter that Nick gave us. And after a tediously long fetch quest, Nick finally decides to give us Eddie's location, which also popped us the trophy Ranger Corps for finding 100 locations.
Bring down Eddie Winter.
While making my way through Eddie's hideout, I actually popped the What's Yours Is Mine trophy for picking 50 locks. Then, after finding Eddie, we found out that he murdered Nick's wife, so obviously we murdered him as payback. And then after a heartfelt conversation with Nick, the Lovable trophy popped for gaining maximum relationship level with a companion.
Yeah, that is if you're still interested in traveling together.
Next on the agenda was to start the Brotherhood of Steel quest line. During the first quest, I decided to light Paladin Dance on fire, which the Brotherhood liked so much that they decided to let me join, giving us the Semper Invicta trophy. And the rest of these quests saw me killing a behemoth from a vertibird using the worst aim you've ever seen, and then completing the Show No Mercy quest, where I decided to stop the Brotherhood quest line for now. And for the record, the reason I keep jumping around in quest lines is to make sure that I get the platinum with only one playthrough. Next, I decided to take on the Railroad quest line, and I tracked them down to the Old North Church, where I was sent on a quest with Deacon to retrieve Carrington's prototype. I turned in that quest and received the Unstoppable Wanderer for reaching level 25, and immediately followed that up with the Tradecraft trophy for completing the quest.
Sometimes the direct approach isn't the best to take.
Coming in or out. You never can tell when you're being watched.
That one quest is it for the Railroad for now, so with that I decided to return to the main story quest line, and this saw me crossing the Glowing Sea, and along the way I picked up the Animal Control trophy for killing 300 creatures. I eventually ran into these Kool-Aid drinking cult members who informed me that the guy that I was looking for, Virgil, was just a little bit further ahead, hiding in a cave. Upon finding Virgil, he informs me that in order to teleport into the Institute, I need to first kill a Courser synth. So I made quick work of that Courser synth, netting me a Courser chip as well as the Hunter/Hunted trophy. Then I took the chip to Tinker Tom back at the Railroad, and he put an access code on a holotape for me to give to Virgil. Then after returning to Virgil, he gave me the option of who I wanted to help me build the teleporter to reach the Institute. I chose the Railroad to ensure the shortest path to the Platinum. So next I had to clear this location and build a reflector platform. Once I did that, the Railroad sent me on another fetch quest for 3 items, and I left that out for time's sake. But then I finished building the teleporter and teleported into the Institute with Desdemona telling me to find a way to save the synths inside. And once inside, the molecular level trophy popped for infiltrating the Institute. At this point, I started hearing a voice from someone called The Father, and he wanted to meet face to face, so obviously I obliged. But first, however, I ran into Sean, and he treated me like the stepdad that he thinks I am.
Go away! Father! Father, help me! There's someone here! Help me!
Shut up! Shut up!
That's okay, though, because it turns out that he's not the real Sean. He actually is just a synth. And then the Father comes in and shuts him down and then reveals himself to be Sean, just aged 60 years since the last time that I saw him. After this, I agreed to join the Institute, was sent on a mission to meet everyone in the Institute, and then uploaded a message for our spy on the inside for the Railroad and popped the institutionalized trophy. Next on the agenda was back to the faction quest lines to advance them as far as I can without making anyone hostile against me. So I met with an undercover Railroad agent named Patriot. He then introduced me to a synth named Z114, and Z114 was interested in freeing the synths in the Institute. Then Patriot tasked me with finding a pre-war admin password to override the security doors to help the synths escape the Institute. After speaking with Pam at the Railroad and then going to Cambridge Polymer Labs, I actually found the login credentials, and I had been locked in a lab by a robot, but that's okay because I actually decided to get revenge on that robot right here. Then on the advice of the Railroad, I actually decided to return to Z114 instead of Patriot, and I recommended the synths fight their way out of the Institute instead of sneaking. He needed a day to reflect, but eventually saw things my way. And then he sends me on a quest to kill some guards and steal a crate for the escape, which I of course did with ease. Now it's back to the Brotherhood quest line again, where they sent me to talk to Dr. Lee inside the Institute to get her to rejoin the Brotherhood of Steel. She agrees to rejoin, but only if I find evidence on how Virgil, the super mutant from the Glowing Sea, died. And along the way, to find the evidence, I popped the Scaver trophy for stealing, gathering 1,000 resources used for craft. Once inside Virgil's lab, I found this holotape that proves Virgil is still alive and escaped the Institute, and the Institute was just faking his death, and that was proof enough to convince Dr. Lee to come back to the Brotherhood. However, she refused to be seen in public with me.
Here are 6 signs that you are really ugly. Oops.
Once I turned in that quest, I was given another quest that involved booting up Liberty Prime. And there were multiple steps in that quest, but I didn't want to waste your time, so I just skipped ahead right to the point where I turned in the quest for booting up Liberty Prime. Next, it was back to the Institute to start the quest Synth Retention, where I was sent to retrieve a rogue synth that believes he's a raider. While clearing his camp, I popped the Masshole trophy for killing 300 people. After forcing the synth to return to the Institute, I returned to Father Sean, where he gave me the quest for the Battle of Bunker Hill. And then, being the snitch that I am, I ratted like 6ix9ine facing a court case and told the railroad that the Institute was coming after them and some synths that they had helped escape the Institute. Then on the way to Bunker Hill, I stopped by Sanctuary and plopped down some water purifiers, which popped the Fixer Upper trophy for building 100 settlement items. Then I fought through the enemies and saved the synths from the Institute before returning to the Institute, where I attended a board meeting where Sean informed the entire meeting that he had contracted AIDS after a night partying with Jenny from Forrest Gump.
I'm sorry to say I am dying.
After concluding the quest and talking to Sean, it actually popped the trophy Mankind Redefined. And now this was the spot where I created a save file because I was about to make the Brotherhood hate me by doing the Mass Fusion quest. But after turning in the Mass Fusion quest, Sean tells me that the Minutemen and the Institute are in a standoff. So I head to the standoff and I order the Minutemen to stand down as their general. But of course, they decided to refuse the order. So I did the only logical thing that I could think of at that current moment, which was, I mean, just murdering every single one of them, of course. After starting down my villain arc, I returned to Sean, where he forced me to record a message for the entire Commonwealth. Then I reconfigured a radio station to play the message and then promptly murdered the DJ just for fun. Then we returned to the Institute to power up their nuclear generator, which then popped me the trophy Powering Up.
Work is sloppy fast and deadly at worst.
Now it was time to meet with Z-114 again to resume the railroad quest line. He informs me that the Brotherhood has located the railroad's headquarters and are planning an assault. So I quickly headed to the railroad and snitched again, and then popped the trophy Underground Undercover.
Defensive positions. Reinforce glory in the tunnels. Move!
Next, I quickly fended off the Brotherhood of Steel, after which I was instructed to steal a Vertibird and take the fight to the Brotherhood by taking down the Prydwen. So, continuing my newfound murderous ways, I murdered all of my friends at the Cambridge police station. Then we hopped on our freshly stolen Vertibird and headed straight to the Prydwen. And then once aboard the Prydwen, I fought my way through waves of enemies, planted the bombs, and then made my escape. Once I got back to the railroad, I turned in the quest and finally completed the railroad quest line, receiving the trophy Rocket's Red Glare. And now it's off to finish the Institute's quest lines. So after returning and reporting to Sean, he tells me that I must eradicate the railroad. And since I've already gotten all of the trophies I need from him, that isn't a problem. After that, I return to Sean, watch him die, and roll the ending cutscene. After which, I popped the final Institute trophy, Nuclear Family, followed by Prepared for the Future for deciding the fate of the Commonwealth. Now it's time to boot up the old save file that brings me back to just before I made the Brotherhood of Steel hate my guts. This time, instead of helping the Institute on the Mass Fusion questline, I snitched to the Brotherhood, in turn making the Institute hate my guts now. A little bit later on in the questline, I spoke to Elder Maxon and found out that Paladin Danse has been a synth this entire time. So it was time to put on my murdering pants and kill another one of my friends. Then after turning in this quest, I received the trophy Blind Betrayal. Next, I speak with Kells, who informs me that he wants me to murder the railroad for the second time.
Here we go again.
Now with the railroad out of the way, it was finally time to take down the Institute. So we fired up Liberty Prime and I followed him all the way to the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, where he decided to blow a hole in the ground, giving us a way inside of the Institute. After jumping into the hole, the Ad Victorium trophy pops. Elder Maxon then informs me that we are planning to attach a nuke to their reactor, then escape to a safe distance. So I fought my way to Sean's room, where I murdered someone else that I'm close to. Then I attached the nuke to their reactor, watched it go off, and rolled the credits once again. After that, we got the final story-related trophy, Nuclear Option. And with the main story finally finished, I set off to complete 10 side quests for a trophy. Those included murdering another friend, Virgil, completing more settlement quests, killing the mayor of Diamond City, and finally, my favorite act of depravity, Grave Desecration.
Jesus Christ.
Which finally popped the Gun for Hire trophy. Now it was on to the miscellaneous objectives, of which I needed 50 and I had only done 4. So I looked up a guide to cheese it, and it was a pretty simple method. You just throw a vertibird signal, and once the vertibird arrives, you board it and then hop off, then fast travel and repeat the process. So I did this 46 times and got the Mercenary trophy. Next on the list was the trophy for creating 50 weapon mods. The easiest way to do this was to equip and unequip my suppressor over and over, which eventually popped the Armed and Dangerous trophy. Then somehow, after completing the entire storyline, I had never recruited 5 companions. So I started going through and talking to the companions to see who I didn't have. First one I talked to was Codsworth, which was convenient because I immediately popped the trophy for Never Go It Alone.
Sure.
And since we're knocking out easy trophies, I decided to take down 5 giant creatures next. I did get one during the story quest, so I only had to kill 4 more to pop the Harder They Fall. Bobbleheads collecting was up next, but because I'm an idiot, I thought that saving all the collectibles until after the story would make getting them easier. It did not. However, along the way, I got Robco's worst nightmare for hacking 50 terminals.
I'm in.
Shortly after that, I collected my 10th bobblehead and popped the They're Not Dolls trophy. And after collecting 10 more, got the They're Action Figures trophy. Keeping in line with getting the collectibles, I went for the magazines next, which saw me getting 20 to get the Print Is Not Dead trophy. And with that, it was finally time to start working on the Benevolent Leader trophy. So I went to Red Rocket, put down a turret, 2 beds, 1 water pump, 2 mutt fruit plants, and a restaurant. And now we just waited for the happiness meter to go up to 100. And while we waited, I did need to craft 100 items, so obviously it was time to start cooking drugs.
Wanna cook?
And after what seemed like an eternity of doing this, I finally crafted my 100th one, which got me the Wasteland DIY trophy. And with that out of the way, it was now time to start going for level 50, so I made more drugs and finally got the Legends of the Wastes trophy. Now, I checked in after all this to see that my happiness meter had gone from 50 to 94, so I continued to wait and wait and wait some more until after about 4 hours of real life time, I finally hit 100 happiness and got the Benevolent Leader trophy. And then finally, the last trophy for the platinum. I've been saving this one. All I needed to do was pickpocket someone and drop a live grenade into their inventory while doing so. Very easy trophy to get. Here you see, dropped it in there, popped the prankster's return, and immediately followed that up with bada bing, bada boom, the platinum trophy for Fallout 4. Now, as you guys can see, I have a lot of games that I started getting the platinum for, but I never quite finished, and I wanted to change that, so I've decided to go back through some of the games that I never got the platinum for and clean up my trophy list. So what I did was I created a picker wheel. And as you can tell, there's a lot of great games on this wheel. You can see the list over on the right, but the first one that we are going to work on platinuming is going to be the original Mass Effect in the Mass Effect trilogy. So if you guys like this video, click the like button, click subscribe, and I'll see you next time in the Mass Effect Platinum video.